Hello, good, yes. Thank you, Summer, and thank you for inviting us to speak today and to your wonderful institution. It's a privilege to be here. I want to talk about play and fun and excitement and why these things are increasingly important for our work in designing cities. I'm an architect, but have done a lot of my works really in urban design, the designing of cities. So firstly, I wanted to talk about a bit about what we do and the scales we work at. So on one level, we work at the scale of the city, and that's really designing how cities evolve and change over time, and the behaviors and patterns of use that go on in cities. The scale down from that, we work at an architectural scale, the buildings that make up our cities, and then we work right the way down to the products. We do quite a lot of product design, and we're interested in that human scale, the things we touch and use every day. For example, this is a cycle rack for New York. It's a very tangible thing that we use every day. However, having said that, I want to clarify that the real aim of all this stuff is not so much these physical things. It's designing how cities work as a living, breathing, and social and cultural event. We see cities as a really amazing phenomenon where sort of millions of social interactions are happening every second. And the physical aspects I just spoke about, which are products and architecture and buildings, they're just a means to an end to facilitate and help navigate this social event. It's something we're constantly reminding our clients, and I think there's an automatic focus very often to think of if you're an architect or a product designer that they're buying a product or an art or building. But really, when we talk to our clients, the physical hardware is the glass, the concrete, and the metal. It's something we have to tell them, this is going to cost you. This is the thing that's going to cost you. Depending on the scale of the project, it could be thousands, hundreds, big cities, billions. But it's the software, really, the social spaces and the meaningful interactions in cities. These are the things that make cities desirable, or what they're building and the environments they're building desirable, and it creates the long-term value, really, the social value and the cultural value. That's where the real payback is, and cities are increasingly aware of this now, and that this is what really defines their economic success. It's increasingly less about necessarily a city having the tallest, shiniest tower, even though that still goes on. It's often a lot more cities are competing to be the most exciting, fun experience or destination in the world. And it's a competitive game, so of the top 6 worlds by visitor income, just to sort of give the economic background to it, they sort of start off at Dubai, London, New York, Bangkok, Tokyo, Paris. We know all these cities, and they all these top 6 sit also in the top 10 rating of the most exciting cities to visit and be in. There are various different ratings of that, but they're consistently in that sphere. And it's not by accident. It's very heavily invested in by these cities. It's an important part of how they operate, and as an idea or an indication of this, only since 2000, each of these cities has bid for the Olympic Games, and also, moreover, each of these cities has built or started to build a giant Ferris wheel, or a sort of fun Ferris wheel. And in that sense, these cities are sort of developing skylines that are increasingly sort of resemble a fairground almost, even though it sort of goes back to the first Ferris wheel was in Chicago, and it was, interestingly, Paris is now built. I think Paris is the one on the top right for you. The Chicago Ferris wheel was originally designed as a competitor to an answer to the Eiffel Tower, and now that's Paris has built its own Ferris wheel itself, sort of picking up on that. But the increasingly sort of form in this sense is no longer driven by functionality necessarily and urban efficiencies and infrastructure. That's there, but it's going beyond that, and there's an increasingly drive to form is following fun, really. It's a way of cities, not just of providing environments that are fun and exciting, but it's a way of communicating that they're fun and exciting. As a way of attracting an audience that is now global of visitors from around the world. I'm going to briefly lead on from that phenomenon, really, and look at how some of our work starts to address that in urban design. And primarily, we use play as a means, sort of three aspects. So one is a means of participation, getting people engaged and involved in what cities are doing and how we're working as parts of cities, with parts of cities. Play as a process, a way of delivering the changes we're making to city in a playful way or through a game process. And also play as a program, more direct, really. So designing or creating strategies where they introduce new activities into existing areas of city that are play-based. So firstly, as a play as a program, it's a project we won a competition for with the City of London, which is right at the heart of London. It's a 1 square mile. It's often called the Square Mile. It's actually the oldest bit of London. It's where Roman London used to be. But nowadays, it's actually it's our financial district, and it's pretty it has been for a long time quite monofunctional. It's primarily associated with salary workers, 500,000 salary workers coming into work every day, and coming into work to run our financial system. So it's not the most likely location you'd have thought for play and fun and excitement. But one of the insights we realized when we started the project was that it was quite an amazing location in terms of it could get 500,000 people in and out of that bit of city in 2 hours, better than any other venue or destination in London. Any stadium, Wembley Stadium, the Olympic City, the new Olympic City, none of them could actually beat how efficiently people got in and out of this bit of city. You know, it's an infrastructural sort of capability, but it had this sort of amazing capability. And the other aspect was it was empty much of the time, from evenings and weekends. It just emptied out, and it's a ghost town, actually, or has been. And it's a huge waste of a space, really. And so this map I've just been playing sort of starts to give you the idea of how people have moved in and out of London in a day. It's using all the data from London Transport. So you get this idea of people sort of moving in and out of this space and at quite large numbers. So we developed a strategy with the financial district, the authority runs the financial district, to look at the City of London. By day, it would remain a financial district, the City of London. And by night and weekend, it would become this event space, the City of Fundon. And it was a sort of fun play of words, but it went to a sort of more interesting, or sort of deeper thing about how you can schedule cities and how a time-based element to urban design. You know, we're used to scheduling events and programs, but cities and their ability to schedule on a large scale opens up huge opportunities to unlock existing spaces, often that have amazing capabilities like this one. And it's got amazing. The other amazing thing was actually no one's around in the weekend. Not many people live there, so you can actually make quite a lot of noise. If you do that in any other part of London, it's a disaster. Everyone complains. So it sort of seemed ideal as this event space. So. And the City of London we're working with them currently on how to do this, how this city of fun and city of finance can coexist in the same place but at different times, and have sort of two parallel cities in one place, and attract a whole different audience to this city of tourists, families, and children. And it really starts to change what that space is. Secondly, I want to look at players' participation. This was looking at some of our projects we did during the Olympics in London, 2012 Olympics. It's probably, the Olympics is probably one of the largest global urban events around, and these huge infrastructure stadia and event spaces. But they were all largely contained in Olympic sites in London. Quite sort of in East London was our Olympic sort of city that we built for this, regenerating a large area of London. Our work was slightly at a different scale. It was looking at engaging the wider city with this event. So we worked with the UK government on pavilions that popped up in London during the event, that had an educational relationship to the Olympics, involving young people this was one in Tech City, and making sure that this event wasn't just a sort of celebration that just happened in a park that was almost sort of within London, but slightly, contained out from the main city of everyday life. It spilled out into the city was a key thing. Also, the sort of cultural content, not an educational content, but also cultural content of getting people to working with different communities actually to get content that develop content that sort of came out and got expressed within the streets. This was a project with a school and embedding, I think we had 4,000 cat's eyes, the things that usually are reflectors on roads, drilled them into a wall, and through working with the school on how to sort of, it was their sort of cultural response to the Olympics. I don't know quite how we got the flying cat in there, but that was, I think that it was all about having them participate and feel involved in this citywide event, and leave a memory of that as well. This is, this is still there, still lasts. As cars go past, it still sort of glistens with light every day. Third one project, it was more for the London parks, and it was more of an interaction piece, really. And it was looking at how we've got millions of visitors visiting London. How do you get them to interact and sort of engage with each other? How can you encourage that? And it was a canopy. It was an interactive canopy that when it, obviously, it will invariably rain in London when we have a sporting event. That's what happens always. So we designed a rain canopy, and it requires 2 people's weight to activate it. So only when 2 people sit down on it does this thing come and shelter you. So it requires you to work with someone else if you're stuck in the middle of a park to get your shelter. And it might have to be a stranger who you don't know. It was a way of breaking the ice, and a fun, playful way to create those moments of shared endeavor and connection that, especially if you're a visitor, it sort of can be make the difference. Thirdly, players' process, and this was a project that sort of works with this in Manhattan. We looked at 6,100 cycle stands all over the city. It was the response was to take these and turn them into something special, really. A cycle rack that was also a brand to encourage sustainable transport, and based on the I Love New York logo. That's sort of an older logo that's well known for the brand of New York. And once you turn a product like this, that's usually municipal, into a desirable product that is, you can choose the color, and alongside that was developed a way of allowing people to, sort of a game that allowed people to choose where these went. It wasn't the local authority that chose where they went. People were allowed to engage with that and also choose the color of their cycle rack near their house. And it changed the relationship between people and these municipal products that, again, gives them a sense of ownership and a different relationship with these things that are usually sort of slightly left as municipal afterthoughts. In that vein, we're also working with pop-up environments. We work with a peer here in London on who run a lot of pop-up spaces. And we've been developing formats for pop-up spaces where there's, this is in our Oxford Street retail area, that provides a different kind of retail to the surroundings and encourages people to, for the retail side, it's quite good for the area. It encourages people to come and explore more often to, this changing environment. But also it gives them a say. There's a sort of gamification for this as well, where they have a say in what happens in those environments over time and how that relates to the cultural event of London. So leading on, one of the things going forward is we're increasingly looking at interaction in public space, and this is a 1.3 kilometer, part of a 1.3 kilometer installation for Oxford Street again. It's interactive, it allows people to relate, the lights respond to the movement of people below, but also on social media input. That is, those levels of interaction technology is making, well, it's changing what you can do. It's around, but the possibilities are changing. But also one of the bigger changes we're really sort of increasingly playing with is allowing us, how technology is allowing us to create a more direct connection between a playful activity and people who might not be experts in a field of delivering public environments to the finished product or urban environment. And with CNC manufacture, rapid prototyping, rapid manufacture as well, it gives us an enormous potential to change our role as designers into that of enablers and more directly realize the aims and agendas of those who aren't experts, who are the end user and resident. And that, I'll leave you with the thought that sort of where we find it most exciting, it changes the idea of authorship in the city, of who designs our city, and I think that's where these things are really changing. I've shown most projects we've been doing in London or in New York, I think were the ones I showed, but we're now, we're working in Riyadh and in Abu Dhabi, and with clients who are really interested in how these technologies and can help facilitate these things. And yeah, it's very exciting.
Thank you so much for the great informative speech. Thank you. And now I'll open the opportunity for the attendee to raise any questions they have for Mr. Harry. So we talked more about, we have someone here.
Can you tell us about your projects in Abu Dhabi or Riyadh?
That was a good.
I might, I can't tell you about Riyadh actually officially, but it's to do with public space and neighborhoods, and it's about, it's a lot to do with walkability and the social, what happens in neighborhoods when you make them walk. What are the social implications of that and how to optimize that? And in Abu Dhabi, it's about, it's actually about public transport, and the context of that is they were going to build a metro, and that's been shelved, and they are looking at how to make the bus system more, engage people with the bus system. There's a reticence among a lot of people in Abu Dhabi to get on the buses. And we're interested in how to change minds and behaviors and how you do that. We're interested in places where that's happened before, like in the London Underground when that first developed. There was a huge investment in the London Underground as a cultural space, and how to make people feel that this transport system is core to their cultural engagement and belonging in the city. And that's part of our approach that we're looking at with Abu Dhabi.
Okay. That was a smart question to know more about the projects happening. So any other question we have here?
Thank you, Mr. Harry. You gave a wonderful talk. It was really inspiring, like how you took your own path in architecture and how you transformed it in a way to fit your vision, which is like the idea of fun. You know, it should be like a playful thing. So I really like that. And I have a question. I'm still like I'm an aspiring architect. Hopefully, I'm still in my final year in high school. And I was wondering, like, what do you have a specific, like, advice to give an inspiring architect in general?
Let me think. That's a difficult one.
This is a high responsibility on you now.
I think the key on it that you learn is there are lots of you have a training as an architect, and it's an amazing training. There are two things I'd say. One is don't rely on, if you go ahead and become an architect, don't rely on being an architect as being the end game. That's the beginning. It's like the status or the name as an architect is secondary. What it does, it gives you an amazing training that spans social aspects, cultural aspects, engineer, you know, a very comprehensive, broad range of things. And that's after that, you've got especially in architecture is a very globalized industry. Actually, you know, everyone is from all over the world, works all over the world. So being a generic architect is difficult. I'd say you've got to find your path, and you should try and find a path that's unique. And you'll find it if you look for it. You'll find it. So that would be my general advice.
A follow-up question. So,
okay.
A very passionate potential architect.
Thank you. So actually, when it comes to like studying architecture, I'm facing a dilemma as to where to study it. So I went to the UK. I actually took a portfolio prep course in UAL, and I tried myself like in the US as well. But I'm still not sure. Do you think, like, what do you think what do you recommend as to kind of university-wise and or specific like characteristics, I guess, of university?
It's difficult, and I think they're horses for courses, as it were. So I think different people, it will suit different places, and that's really important. So if someone says, "Oh, this is the greatest school," you know you've got to find it out for yourself, and go and visit them. Actually, go and visit them. Ask to go to a crit or something. That's a pretty good way of finding out. Visit someone being critted and feel the atmosphere of it and what they're doing. And I think, if I'm honest, the one thing, and this is subjective from my point of view, but I think when an architecture school focuses on people primarily, that's important. As a profession, we can sometimes certain ends forget about people, and we get obsessed about form and a lot of things that are important. But for me, I think I would say that if you start with the people, you're always going to be good. You'll be all right. Things can go wrong in architecture when we forget that. So some schools are more focused on that than others. But I think everyone has their places that would suit them better than others, I think.
Thanks for sharing this piece of wisdom from your experience and in architecture. I hope you got something for today. And part of it is being here in منصة تنوين and learning from everyone, getting inspired as well. Thank you so much. Please help me thank him again for the great speech.